Yeah, I remember the first time seeing a thruster, and I heard about Simon winning those 2 contests back to back, and then looking at that, I'm going, that is just bizarre. I remember seeing a Lopez tri-fin and saying, that is so cool, that's what I want. I always wanted it, never got one. And when the thruster came, I just go, that is just bizarre. How's that gonna work? And then I saw this kid that's out at Swami's on one, and I just go, what? He's just drawing these lines I'd never seen before. And I go, okay, that's something I have to go ahead and stop and look at. And, yeah.
I've got a similar story. I was surfing blacks January '81, and I'd been out for a couple hours, and it was really, really good, 6 foot plus, just classic conditions. And I got out, and then I was starting to walk back towards the road. Simon, I'd never met him, so Greg introduced us, and I was tripping on Simon's board because the nose was probably 11 and a half, and the tail was probably like 16 inches wide. And so we exchanged pleasantries and stuff, and I thought to myself, well, I'm going to sit down and watch for a little while. And the guys paddled out, and the first wave Simon got, he took off, and he went down to the bottom of the wave, which people don't usually do at blacks, or depending on how fast it is, swell direction or whatever, but squared off and came up and went past vertical, did a huge gaff, and then did about 3 or 4 more, got a little cover up and came out, and I just kind of scratched my head, because everybody else is drawing lines like this. Went back to my little factory and glassed a trailer on to a twin fin. And twin fins had kind of big fins back then, and I glassed a 3rd fin under the tail, and then rode it the next day, and this thing feels kind of stiff. But there were certain times when it would actually thrust and squirt, and I went, this is interesting, but I like my twins.
Yeah, I went home that winter and decided to build myself one, and when I got in the shaping room, I did not have any templates. I couldn't get that curve in the tail. So what I did was I got one of my nose templates, turned it around using it on the tail. I'd never done before.
Straight.
Yeah, and there's still that some of that essence from that first flip around, that's still there in some of those templates. So.
I was making fins for Murray at Pipe Dream. So I used to make 1 fin at a time, then all of a sudden Murray's going, right, we're making 3 now. So my job just got so much harder. So I had to make all these fins, and every, like Murray was surfing a lot back then, and so was I, and we tested so many different fins. So just trying to get a copy of what Simon was doing in Sydney and getting those fins and trying to make it all work and moving them around. And like for a whole year, Murray had me ripping fins out, moving around on all the team boards just to get the positions right and everything like that.
I wasn't even around when it happened. I didn't start surfing until summer of '82.
It's definitely Mick Fanning for sure. He's been wonderful for myself, for my brand and for everything. But before that, it was myself really. Surfing. I was lucky enough to grow up at Kira and surfing great waves, perfect, barreling, Queensland waves. And the boards, like you were saying before, they were quite flat. And everything I came into the industry, everything was so flat. The blanks were flat, and it was just about trying to get curve into boards. And so Mick was a young guy, and I was giving him all these things and trying to teach him what to do. And he really loves to analyse everything and understand that and brings it back to the table just to make better surfboards.
Currently, probably for the last 5 or 10 years, it's been Josh in terms of a pro. Josh takes the time to come down to the factory and always gives me good feedback, and he's been getting his hands dirty lately too, which is good. He's made some interesting boards. The asymmetrical he wrote at Chopu, and and back when I was younger, I think the feedback, from my own feet, I used to sometimes I'd make myself 2 or 3 boards a week, just moving through ideas and things like that. Not that I'm a great surfer, but there's something to be said for feeling. Having under your feet different designs, so you know what works, what doesn't work, or where the fins need to be, and then thirdly, honestly, it's the civilians, the custom guys that come in, get X number of boards from me a year, and their feedback is good because, for the most part, that's the guy that's going to be riding the boards. So
I judge everything with my relationship with Michael Ho back in the 80s, and it was different with him. And so it was my first experience dealing with a shaper of his caliber, and he was, at least to this day, the most picky surf I've ever worked with.
He was sitting on my chest yesterday.
And Mike had he had a real good way of just delivering the bad news. He was good. If you didn't hear from him, it was good news. But if he gave, if I got a call, I'm going, okay, what's wrong? What do you want? And he knew how to deliver it, which was really, really good on his part. But he would say, the boards, if the board was good, he'd say it's good, but I can't win on it. And so he needed something else. And so it was extremely, at times it was frustrating and pulling hairs out, and other times it was extremely satisfying. But he really forced me to up my game.
Well, I've been working with Dane a lot, which is super fun and super challenging as well. Like, I imagine Michael Dane is pretty picky. He's pretty particular. He's not particular about volumes, which is nice. He'll get boards, and he knows how to deliver the bad news as well, which is pretty normal. But it's fun when you see a surfer like Dane amped and you see their confidence level go up. And so he's been super challenging and influential with me. But like DH was saying, and Rusty, man, I just love feeling boards myself. Usually before I make something for Dane, I'll make one for myself and go surf it, or maybe I'll make it for Dane and he'll say something, so I'll make one for myself just like it and go ride it and try to feel what he's feeling and ride the same fins and get it glass the same. And that's really been helpful as well.
Over the years developing as a shaper, I would say that the first person that really slapped me in the face and said, you need to step up if you want to be in this game was Shane Beshin. And both of you guys worked a lot with Shane, and your dad worked a lot with Shane.
Shane learned a lot from Michael.
Shane learned a lot from Michael. Shane quotes Michael to this day. Shane idolizes Michael. And Shane, because we were pretty close in age, and I was in my late to my mid-20s, and kind of had the Corey Lopez, Chris Ward thing going, but they were just like two teenagers on hyperdrive. They weren't picky. They didn't care. Anything I threw into their feet, it was on. And the media loved them, but there was really no challenge to it. Shane said, okay, Hop Shot, let's see if you can really make boards. I need boards to, I'm going against Kelly Slater and whoever else on the world tour. So he was the first person to really snap me into shape and be very, very analytical, very picky, like this thing sucks, and just like shaping until 1, 2 in the morning and really pushing myself. And he was the first to ever win a world tour event on my boards. And so I give him a lot of credit. And then going back to what Darren and Rusty touched on, and even Britt, is the bottom line is the biggest percentage of our business, the reason I can feed my kids and live a good life is the kind of boards I design based around my surfing and my friends.
Most of the models that we have will translate. They've been developed with pros, but they translate to your average surfer when they get the right volume and stuff like that. And I think that kind of boosts confidence in your average surfer, that they really do have something similar to what they see the guys on tour riding. Obviously there's refinements, but we kind of try to approach it that way.
Sure the hell beats buying ads in a magazine to promote your product. If the surfers around the country and the world see that the best surfers trust us, that's the best advertising you can have. So we're actually working. That's our marketing, is our hours, our missed dinners with our families and our late nights designing, and it all works.
You would have spent a lot of time in the early days. What about when you were dealing with Oki and all that? Did you do much with him at all?
Well, Aki was unique in that.
We know that.
But virtually, I mean, from the first board I built him, he liked pretty much every single board I built him. He was pretty easy. He'd just go out and ride it, and you know, and one of his early contests as a pro was at the Marui Pro, and he, you know, he didn't have 10 boards. I think he had 1 or 2 short boards and then maybe a step up. But his favorite board, I think in round 3, he broke the nose off, and he kept surfing.
I was there that day. I watched him.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
And he got, what did he get, 2nd or 3rd in the
He got
event?
3rd.
Missing 4 inches off the nose.
Where was that?
He was a joy to work with because he, you know, he pretty much wrote everything I made him. And, you know, the board he won the Pipe Masters on, I was looking at it afterwards, and the back fin was completely crooked. You know, for us, it's like when I work with Josh or Noah, and we build them boards, you know, the designs are there, but when we do the catalog or on the internet, the website, we build a scale of civilian numbers for the boards. They're puffed up. They have to be. You know, we're just in Florida and showing Josh's new board, and everyone goes, God, this is great, but we can't sell, you know, 18 3/8 and, you know, 2 3/16.
But it's even the surfers themselves. I mean, we're building them boards where they're paddling out and surfing alone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody goes and gets their Erics, and they go out to Pipeline. They're in a heat with one other guy at Pipeline. But the real world, if you want to surf Pipeline, you're out there with 80 guys. So you got to compete to catch waves. So we're building boards to surf in heats for these guys. They want as low a volume or whatever they want. They're not taking into account the crowds, you know, especially since they're also famous and they're the best paddlers and everything. So it's easier, even if it is crowded, it's easier for them. But I think a big point is that we're making them boards to surf with one other guy and not 60 other guys at Trestles or 150 other guys at Rainbow Bay.
For sure, yeah. The team riders do have a critical role in refining our designs, and in a way, you can see them. You look at them as a compass to stay on course, and
Yeah, that's cool.
but then, you know, we have to modify the designs to make them user friendly. So, of course, yeah, a good board's a good board.
And even the alternative style of boards, if they're really going to click and sell to the masses, most of the time it takes a well-known surfing athlete to back it. You know, whether it's Dane Reynolds with the dumpster diver, or Chris and Corey with the round nose fish 20 years ago, or you know, it's so on and so on. Even the boards that are not designed for contests, it definitely helps if one of the hot surfers says they're good.
In Australia, you know, I do a lot of touring around to stores and speaking to a lot of the salespeople, but most of the customers out there now, I'm finding, are so educated by looking at all the websites.
Internet.
You know, it's just, they come in and nearly know what they want. Even if it's right or wrong, they sort of know what they want. And it's been the biggest part in making it easier for us to just listen to them when, you know, the store people, I mean, listen to them what their customers want, and then we make the models that way. But I think the internet's just changed it all for everyone, and not just my website, every single website, and then all the things that we do, like with surfing, Surfline here, and all the other magazines. The information that they're giving out now is incredible.
And even those individual guys that have their own little shows on the internet, or little web blog guys. I mean, there's almost too much information now.
Those guys know more than anybody, it seems like.
What?
Those guys know more than
They think they do.
Well, the volume thing's been good and bad.
It's
been good and bad.
Yeah, it's pretty radical when you get length, width, thickness, and they call out the volume. That's so much fun. It turns every single custom order into like designing a board for a team rider. It's like, I want my this wide, this thick, and this volume. So you open up the file, and it's like a 1.5 liters difference. You're like, what am I supposed to do? Like redesign the entire foil for this guy? We've actually gone to the point where I tell my sales guys, like, they got to pick one. If they want a specific volume, they got to tell me They got to pick a width or a thickness, but not all. They don't realize how 1 inch change in length or 2 inch change in length dramatically changes the volume of the board.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to stay at that same volume as it was 2 inches shorter, because then you're going to have a potato chip little board.
Right.
You got to let it increase naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because it's all so new, there's people who are hung up on that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, my 6.0 is 28 liters, so I want my 6.2 to be 28 liters. Well, your 6.2 is going to be underwater. It's going to be a
Right.
potato chip to do that.
We could talk for an hour about volume, couldn't we?
Well, yeah. You ever get the request from a customer where they only ask for volume? It's, I don't care what, I just want 35 liters or something like that.
That's the negative of something that. No.
There's one shop in Australia that puts their boards in the category of volumes, not lengths. It's just for that volume between 30 and 32, 33 and 35, and that's how you shop in his store.
Catalog that under bad retail trends.
Yeah, but you can't tell them. Everyone knows.
It's really cool though that the customers do seem so educated these days. And I mean, I talk to, normal surfers at the beach every day, and a lot of them can talk more surfboard design than, team riders. They really have a sense of it, and they're really into it, and I think that makes our job super fun. When I can go down to Rincon and talk to the normal guy that's out there, and like we have the same language now, where that wasn't always true,
On a 7.6 speed egg.
We've made a slight shift and modified our business model to cater more towards the custom market. And so that's one thing we're pushing for. And so it's a lot more work up front, in the front end and the back end, but it's been really rewarding. I mean, I like it. So we're in contact with the actual customer on a one-to-one basis, and there's sometimes the process is long, back and forth. The email threads can be 9, 10, 15 times, but other times it's real quick and direct, and yeah.
We do
puts
the
us
same
in touch.
thing. We encourage people to get as custom as they want. They go to the website and do the custom board builder and tweak and add, and I think that's fun. I love doing that with my own boards, just dreaming up in my own mind what I could do, and for the customer to be able to do that and call up the factory, and we'll walk them through it. They call us if they have questions from the website, but it's fun to be able to do that.
Yeah. And so all we do is we have just a series of questions, just a short list that they'll answer ahead of time, and then they'll send it in, and it helps them to think through the process, to know what they're getting and what they think they want to get, and then at times it addresses that volume thing too, just kind of getting too far off on one end and putting too much emphasis on one aspect of the board, and it kind of brings things back to center. And then so when we start the actual dialogue, we're at least a little further down the road, and it really helps the process.
But custom orders is what separates us from the mass importation and just homogenizing of the surfboards. So
Yep.
I think it's our biggest strength. But I think we do all need to stay focused on the custom. Otherwise, it just gets it just turns into baseball gloves sitting in a row at Target. Like it's a baseball glove branded with the famous baseball player's name, and they're all kind of the same, even though the vast percentage of our business, especially ours, yours, is retail, stock dimensions. But I think what keeps it unique and so cool is our core custom.
I think about it when I'm just watching the contests and watching the top surfers, because that's when you get the chance to see all the different boards kind of back to back, and just watching the way that they ride, that drives me so much. Like mixed boards always look so fast and clean and crisp, and I just like want to go back into the shaping room and figure that out. So I don't necessarily feel the competition and business thing, but just watching the way the boards work and flow. And I rode one of your boards in Hawaii a few years ago, and I've never been able to make a step-up board that worked that well for myself. And so that drives me, not in a competition sense, but man, that board was so good.
But when you walk into the surf shop, there's competition. You're like, I want all those rack spaces.
Right.
Get that guy. Yeah.
I used to use KKL, but I stopped using them because I wanted to give as many guys as I could an opportunity to shape, and I felt like I was taking jobs away from good shapers, with a machine. Like I could see on the rack, no matter how good these guys were, the boards, like if I'd see a row of the CIs or something, just perfect rockers, just up and down the scale, and your boards, and I'd have a look on the rack, and my boards were close, but there was always a little bit of fluctuation, and that's when I decided to come back to a machine. And what I loved about the new machines is the design software, the ability to actually custom build every board if I needed to, as opposed to the older machines where you just had to scan them and blow them up or shrink them, and they distort a little bit as you do that. Noses get narrower and tails get wider and things like that.
I remember a Briley Hawaii quiver you sent over.
Uh-huh.
I was there staying with Strider and Briley, and he got a quiver of your boards sent over. Maybe they were all with red rails or something.
Yeah.
Late
yeah.
90s, mid
Yeah.
to late 90s.
Yeah.
It was like incredible. I was like, wow, I should make my boards this thick. I should make my boards this wide, and I might actually catch a couple of waves out here on them, I'm sure. But yeah, I really enjoy working with other shapers, and it's kind of like the athletes. In the water, you're competing, so in the stores we're competing, but in the factory we're kind of like just having fun and talking and working together to make things better.
It's so fresh when you ride something you just don't know what it's going to go like. I rode one of your boards. It's a swallowtail thing. I can't remember what the model it is. It's a new model. A mate of mine had it, and we just swapped boards out in the surf. And I was just like, didn't know what it was going to do, and I was like, wow, this is so exciting, And it went great, And it was just that to me is just to ride people's different designs and stuff like that, and it helps educate me as well, because I'm sick of riding my own boards.
Well, I think eco-friendly is really important, and we're always kind of exploring the options with that. And it's cool because there's so many options these days. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are working on that, a lot of smart guys that are working on that technology. I think we'll have really, eco-friendly boards that perform really well, that we're able to produce, that are, make sense cost-wise and business-wise. But performance is still king. The boards, it's got to work. And until the technology is there that it works the way it ought to work, and working with it, is the right experience, then it continues to be an experiment. But we're always looking for that stuff. But at the end of the day, we're a performance board company. So performance carries the day. But I think we'll get there as an industry, and it's progressing now more quickly than it ever has.
The more people work on it, the faster it'll progress. But race car drivers aren't worried about eco-friendly parts in their race cars.
Yeah, it can be a hot topic. I think there's got to be integrity in that whole pursuit, because there's a lot of hollow marketing in jumping on the eco bandwagon. And really, there's just really no substance to it except for just the whole marketing advantage of that. So, yeah, so integrity is going to be key. The other thing is, like you mentioned, it's performance is king. So, and I think, in a way, maybe the industry or the market has maybe put, this is my perception, I could be wrong, too much responsibility on the manufacturers, when really it comes down to what our customers want to buy. And it comes down to performance. And so we can produce, actually right now, we can actually get pretty close to producing a recyclable board, but we're going to have to compromise on performance with what we have available right now. And not to mention, we don't have the systems in place to effectively recycle
Exactly.
them. And so it's a farce. And so the thing is, there's got to be responsibility taken on the other end, on the retail end. Yeah.
I think the backdrop is, for us as surfers, we're connected to the environment in such a unique way. And everyone, as you were saying, environmental, this and that is is trendy but important, but we're just connected to the environment in a really special way. So I think it's good that we're thinking about it, and I think we'll get there. But
Yeah.
The new epoxy resins on polyurethane foam makes great surfboards.
Oh yeah, yeah, we do a lot of those.
Those are fantastic surfboards. They're not that much more, and more laminators and board builders in Southern California are using it, learning how to use it.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more with everything all of you said. Every one of you had such resonating points. It is on the positive note, because we can sit here and put our feet in the sand and say, well, why point the finger at us? We're just making a few toys while everyone's on gridlock on their freeways, wearing, rubber and soled imported shoes and driving $80,000 SUVs. But there is a lot of cool, exciting things, and guys with passion doing it, like the E-Tech guys, who we've all probably built boards with, these guys in LA, and their counterparts in San Diego, where they're using the resin that has a certain percentage of tree sap in it, and they're striving to use recycled foam from Marco, recycled EPS. I think using recycled offcut of EPS to make blanks is more attainable than recycling old surfboards. I think that's quite a pipe dream. And playing around with those guys and using hemp cloths and different cloths. And if you put a cool resin tint in it, you don't notice that the cloth isn't the perfect color. And for me, it's really fun to make certain limited edition runs of these boards, highlight them, put them in the best shops, and say, hey, if you really feel strongly about it, we can make this. And in small surf or an average surfer, these boards do perform pretty darn well. They're light EPS epoxy boards that work well in moderate surf for average surfers, no problem. And the guys that I've recently started working with, Libtech of snowboard fame, he's building boards up there without fiberglass, without sandpaper, without solvents, and doing it domestically, made in America. You said earlier, smart people are working on these things, and we're brand guys, we're surfboard designers, we're performance guys, we're branding guys, and then behind us there's all these brilliant, nerdy guys who bring things to us, and we can bring it to the market. So I like to stay in tune with it all, but at the same time, like all of you, I feel like we kind of get an unfair finger pointed at us, for sure.
I've been working a little bit with epoxy, which I really haven't done much in Australia. Epoxy's not big in Australia because the waves are different. So for me, the thing that's keeps me up at night thinking about is what I'm going to do with some of these epoxy boards and stuff like that, and how boards are going to work in wave pools, with the little bit of knowledge I have from there, and then watching what the tour is going to do and the way that they're going to change the tour, and then looking at these kids that I'm like 10-year-olds, what they're doing on waves at the moment, what they're going to be like in the future. So I've got so much work to do, I feel, in the next 10 years to be a part of what's about to happen, because I think the next 10 years is going to be so exciting that the level of surfing is going to go up.
yeah, if the wave pools take off, and you were talking earlier about, I think both of you guys were snowboards, and how those designs can advance because it's the same medium every time, it's the same hill. If the wave pools take off and the market expands, that they're everywhere inland, and it's the same wave over and over again. Imagine if you had a wave pool and you could build a board in the morning, go out and try it in the wave pool, and then come back and build a second version in the afternoon and try it in the wave pool, as opposed to waiting for a surfer to go to Portugal and try the board and call you back. We have one called lowers. Oh, that's right.
Except you have to share it with 100 other people.
You do. Arrogance and attitude helps in that department.
I think we're on the cusp of kind of like, it's great because now the public's aware, and there's a lot of, as you said, bright, smart people working on new foams, new resins. We're working with someone, you guys may be too, that's got something sort of between poly and epoxy. It's two-part. It's very clear, doesn't yellow, has great flex characteristics, no VOCs, you don't have to wear a mask. And work time is like poly, it's quick, your time's pretty quick. And And the first few boards we built with it, it holds up great. And you can glass either type of foam. Pretty excited about that. You know, the new cloths that have come online in the last year or two. And I think as the boards, you know, as the materials change, then I think design's going to change again, you know, because of all the possibilities within the materials.
Designing your medium.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I remember years ago, I was just a kid, and I think it was the first surf movie I've seen. It was, and it was at the drive-in theater. It was 5 Summer Stories. Remember that? And I remember as a kid watching that, and I was just blowing my mind, going, surfing's never, ever going to get better than this. I mean, how can it? It's just impossible. It'll never get better than this. And then I watched a remix of it on tape, and I'm going, good, this is great. I haven't seen it in like 25 years or 30 years, and it was so painful to watch. And I remember thinking, like, do something, you know? And then watching these boards, you could tell, I mean, the equipment was holding them back. And, but it was state of the art at the time. And it just flashed on that, I'm going, I wonder 30 years from now, people are going to be saying the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Looking at video with the current equipment we're building right now, and they're going to say, do something. And
Yeah, I mean, it's a board to a certain degree that holds the surfer back, right? Because in their mind, they can do more than what they're doing. It's just a matter of can they get their board to go there with their mind and where their body wants to go.
And that's what we lead. We lead with our imagination. And that's a cool thing, is just having vision. So if you don't have vision, then you're lost. Yeah. And so I think that's one thing that I'll struggle with, and I strive for the most. It's just maintaining vision, you know, or vision. And we for the past 30, 40 years, we really primarily worked with geometry. And so what we've kind of been looking into at our factory is looking at engineering the board from the inside out, pre-engineered cores and stuff. And so when you talk about, you mentioned when materials change and processes change, it will force us to change the geometry, because you have to optimize the current technology that you're using.
I think it'll slow down, though. I agree with everything you're saying, but I think kind of if you look at gymnastics in the Olympics, or even, it's like, I think we're at a point where the physical abilities of the human, like if you look at Philip Toledo, or, you know, your physical, the human creature can only get so radical, I think, that I think we might be kind of hitting a plateau where I don't think you're going to see breakthroughs like you saw with Simon Anderson at Black's Beach, or the difference between those guys in 5 Summer Stories riding like a wing mini swallow 7.2, you know, they're riding guns and 4-foot waves and all that. I don't think you're going to see those kind of radical changes, because I think gymnastically and like physically, they're already it's getting so radical. I agree so much with the part about materials, because I think if we can get really, really light boards that are strong, you can continue to go lower volume and start surfing more neutrally on the wave. Like if you look at like Ross Clark Jones and those guys towing, you know, or the guys you mentioned, riding those tiny little tow boards on those massive waves, and we should in theory be able to surf small waves on tiny little boards. Like we snowboard on snowboards this big. So I think the materials I agree 100%, materials changing the shape, and I think surfboards could and should get a lot more minimalistic. Wave pools are going to help tremendously with that. The crowds is crowds and currents and tides, and they create such a factor. Such a huge part of our surfboard design is just catching the goddamn waves.